This will sound very strange, but David Blaine and his electrified Tesla coils stunt is a prophecy that is predicting that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, her Air Force Two plane, caused by turbulence, lightning, and a bird strike in St. Louis as she flies across the country on October 17th, 2023. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. The next 20 minutes of this video will be an introduction that I will place at the beginning of many videos. If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead 20 minutes from this point. After Harris's death, she will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and soon after, Barack Obama will replace Michelle. This is the reason why Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. It is so that Barack Obama can become the president again. It is predicted that Michelle Obama will very soon become the 47th president, and soon after that, Barack Obama will become the 48th president. In the Bible, a goat is symbolism for the Antichrist. In pop culture, goat stands for greatest of all time. Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash after her plane's engine will suffer a bird strike. As a result, the GOAT Antichrist will come to power. The GOAT of college football coaching died at the age of 61 and was born in 1961. The GOAT Antichrist was born in 1961. 61 is the 18th prime number, and 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6, which hints at 666, the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. Coach Mike Leach won 84 games with the Texas Tech Raiders, and this year, when he died at the age of 61, his team had a record of 8-4. The GOAT Antichrist was born on the date 8-4 in 1961. And outside the US, the date 8-4 is written as 4-8, and the Antichrist will become the 48th president. Coach Mike Leach was famous for his revolutionary air raid style of offense, and he was also famous for coincidentally coaching the Texas Tech Red Raiders. The name Air Raid hints at a bird strike of Kamala Harris's airplane. The Air Raid coach died 96 days after the Queen of England died at the age of 96. As a result of Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash due to a bird strike, Michelle Obama will become the Queen of America. In God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, the number 9 is the most important number, as from the Bible it symbolizes God's judgment, and God frequently repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. It is predicted that Michelle Obama will become the president on November 13th, 2023, which will be 9 plus 9 plus 9 days after it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash on October 17th. And October 17th will be exactly 44 weeks, which hints at the 44th president. After the GOAT of college football coaching, the Air Raid coach, died, and he is famous for having won National Coach of the Year twice, and 3 times Coach of the Year for his conference, which hints at 2 and 3, and 23, which is the jersey number that the basketball president wore when he played basketball in high school, and 2 divided by 3 equals 0.666, the number of the Antichrist. And this 23 pairs with 44, which is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, which is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And one simple way in which he would provide second witnesses, which the Bible says is required, is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 23 and 44, because the 44th president, the basketball president, wore jersey number 23 when he played basketball and will become the president again in 2023. God also pairs 9 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections. And so this 9 plus 9 plus 9 days pairs with this 44 weeks, which pairs with this 2 and 3, which hints at 23. And also the day that Michelle Obama is predicted to become the 47th president is in fact in turn also 4 plus 4 days before it is predicted that Barack Obama will become the 48th president. It is also 2 times 3 days, which also hints at 23, which pairs with this 9 and 44. It is 2 times 3 days before it is predicted that Barack Obama will become the 51st vice president, after he is appointed vice president by Michelle Obama. God pairs 9 and 11 together to confirm the signs and connections and to point to or hint at the 9/11 judgment warning in 2001, and it is predicted that Michelle Obama will become the president exactly 11 months after the death of the air raid coach, which will in turn be exactly, or was exactly, 9 months, which is more than simply a prophetic 9. When asked by his disciples for the signs of his return to look for, Jesus replied with the metaphor of birth pains. And according to the medical profession, the average human gestation period is 9 months. And so 9 months connections hint at the birth pains of the end times period of the Antichrist. And this goat, greatest of all time, which hints at the goat Antichrist, his death, the air raid coach, is exactly 9 months, which pairs with this 11 months after the goat of football, Tom Brady, greatest of all time, at the age of 44 years old, announced in a tweet that he would return for a 23rd season. This was on the same day that the 44th president announced with a tweet that he had the CVD disease, and this is, or was, 23 days before he returned to the White House, as in the return for a 23rd season. This announcement of Brady's return for a 23rd season, the GOAT's return for a 23rd season, which pairs with the 9 months, because God pairs 9 and 23 together, one reason being among many, the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 became president in 2009 and will become the president again in 2023. The GOAT Antichrist, the announcement of the 23rd season, and the 44th president's announcement, which also pairs with this 23 weeks. This 23rd season pairs with exactly 23 weeks back to the prophetic return of the GOAT game when Tom Brady and his Buccaneers returned for the first time, as in returned to the White House for the first time. Barack Obama on this date, they returned to play. The GOAT returned to Boston for the first time since leaving the Patriots with his Buccaneers to play the Patriots. This was the return of the GOAT sign. It was billed as such. It was exactly 23 weeks before he announced a return for the 23rd season, which was 23 days before the return of the GOAT Antichrist to the White House. And that is what we are talking about with this diagram, the return of the GOAT Antichrist as the president through this process of the death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash and Michelle Obama becoming the president. As was just mentioned, God pairs 9 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections. The 44th president became the president in 2009, and the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. And again, it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash on October 17th, which is predicted to be 9 plus 9 plus 9 days before Michelle Obama will become the president. And exactly 44 weeks before it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, was the day that the air raid, due to a bird strike, was the day that the air raid coach, the GOAT of college football coaching, Mike Leach, died. And he died exactly 9 plus 9 plus 9 weeks after the date that Kamala Harris announced a major $19 billion package for the border wall of security crisis. The number 19 symbolizes God's perfect judgment. The number 9 symbolizes judgment. The number 10 symbolizes God's perfect order. 9 plus 10 equals 19, God's perfect judgment. This $19 billion that was raised from private companies was supposedly for the purpose of providing aid and economics for the supposed source of the border wall of security crisis, when in fact the border wall of security crisis is symbolic of America's crisis with God, and therefore its walls of security collapsing in judgment, as was paralleled or described in the book of Joshua, which is why on this day was also the day that the biggest ever caravan began marching to the border wall of security from the southern Mexico town. And that's because the border wall of security is symbolic of America's walls of security collapsing in God's judgment. And this was at the time of the 9th, as in the number 9 that symbolizes God's judgment, and as in this 9 plus 9 plus 9 weeks exact connection from this 9th Summit of the Americas that Kamala Harris was attending at this time. And this border wall of security sign was 7 days after it was announced at Joshua Tree National Park that it would be closing its 49 Palms Trail to enable access to bighorn sheep to water. And this is very prophetic because in the book of Joshua, the Israelites marched around the walls of security for 7 days before they collapsed in God's judgment. And then on the 7th day, before they collapsed in God's judgment, they marched around 7 times while they blew 7 trumpets. And that hints at 7 times 7, and this was 49 palms, and it was a hiking trail, which hints at the march that the Israelites did around the walls of security, and they were led by Joshua, and this is described in the book of Joshua, and this 49 Palms Trail was closed in Joshua Tree National Park, and it was to enable access to water for bighorn sheep. And the trumpets that the Israelites blew before the walls of security collapsed were made out of bighorn sheep's horns. And they marched for 7 days, which is why this 7 days connection from the 49 Palms sign to the big announcement from the 49th U.S. Vice President, who is from Los Angeles, which is right near Joshua Tree National Park, and at this time was also the 9th Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles. And this was 144 days after January 14th, 2022, and the many prophetic signs that are very profound that are described in the must-watch foundational American Pharaoh prophecy video on this channel. One of the signs included the 144 horses, which is why before this date I knew that if Kamala Harris's plane was not to crash on this date, that there would be a connection of 144 days later, and therefore I knew that there would be a sign on this date ahead of time. I knew that there would be a likely sign on this date involving the number 144, and then sure enough, there was the national news story regarding the rescue of 144 horses. The prophetic significance is explained in the American Pharaoh prophecy video. Now, the rest of this video after this introduction will regard the amazing trail of signs, the stories that God has been telling that led to January 14th. I have now explained how January 14th was a step in the trail of signs that is connecting to the date that it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, but God pointed to this date, and there was a plane crash on this date for that matter. And anyway, it's important that we know why and how God was pointing to this date, January 14th, which will be the subject of the rest of this video after this introduction. Michelle Obama will return to the White House as a result of the 49th Vice President's death in a plane crash due to a bird strike that will be 44 weeks after the death of the air raid coach, which in turn was 97 days after she returned to the White House for the unveiling of her portrait on the date September 7th, which is 9/7 and hints at 97, because 97 is the 25th prime number, and the 25th Amendment will be used to make her the president, and then the 25th Amendment will be used to make her husband the president again. Michelle Obama will replace the 49th U.S. Vice President and then become the president as a result of the death of the 49th Vice President in a plane crash caused by a bird strike, which will be 44 weeks after the death of the air raid coach. And this was in turn exactly 49 months after her book Becoming was released, because she will become the president. Michelle Obama will become the first female president and the 47th president as a result of Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash that will be 44 weeks after the death of the GOAT of college football coaching, the air raid coach, which in turn was exactly 47 weeks after the death of Lucia Harris, the queen of basketball, who was the first and only woman to be drafted by the NBA, and Michelle Obama will replace Kamala Harris, the first female vice president, and then become the first female president, the 47th president, which is the reason for this 47 weeks connection. And her husband is the basketball president. The death of the GOAT of college football coaching, the air raid coach, which hints at the bird strike of Kamala Harris's airplane, died exactly 1,109 weeks after the air raid on the Twin Towers and the Pentagon on 9/11 in 2001. The number 1,109 hints at 110 and 9. God pairs the numbers 110 and 9 together to point to the 110 floors of the Twin Towers that collapsed, and George Washington's walk down Wall Street after his first inauguration at Federal Hall, and into the church that was the only building at Ground Zero to have survived the falling debris, due to the uprooted sycamore tree that sheltered and protected Trinity Church. In God's judgment warning to ancient Israel in the book of the prophet Isaiah 9:11 says that the buildings have collapsed and the sycamore trees have been uprooted. In what today is known as the Miracle Chapel, George Washington consecrated the nation to God, saying that if the nation were to ever turn away from God, it would lose its divine protection and blessings. Wall Street is named after the 9-foot-high wall of security that the Dutch built to keep the British and the Indians out. And in the Bible, Joshua died at the age of 110, and he led the Hebrews around the walls of security before they collapsed in God's judgment. And Joshua and the Hebrews crossed the Jordan River into the Promised Land on the date 110 in the Hebrew calendar, which hints at the number 110. God pairs the numbers 110 and 9 together to symbolize all of this. And Joshua is a type for Jesus, and Jesus' first coming was officially on the date 110 in the Hebrew calendar. 2 towers that were each 110 stories high is symbolism for Jesus' second coming. That God pairs 9 and 110 together to point to 9/11 is the reason why the iconic Air Force plane in the collapse of Afghanistan on the prophetic 20th anniversary of the collapsed 110-story buildings on 9/11 was number 1109, which hints at 110 and 9. Barack Obama will become the president again, and the Antichrist, predicted to be on November 21st, 4 + 4 days after it is predicted that Michelle Obama will become the president, and this is predicted to be 9 + 9 + 9 days after it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, which is predicted to be 44 weeks after the death of the GOAT of college football coaching, the air raid coach, died on December 13th, 2022, exactly 1,109 weeks, which hints at 9/11, after 9/11 and the air raids on 9/11. Barack Obama will become the president again as a result of the death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash, which is predicted to be 44 weeks after the death of the air raid coach, which was exactly 90,011 days after the nation was born on July 4th, 1776. America will lose its independence 90,011 days after it established its independence. 90,011 days hints at the judgment warning for the nation in 2001 on 9/11. Some social media sites have a maximum length for videos that can be posted, and so I need to cut this video into 2 parts. Click on the link to watch the remainder of this video. You can also find this link in the description box below this video. Make sure you watch the remainder of this extremely important video that is posted on a different channel than the one you are watching now. The link to the rest of this video is in the description box below this video. If the link is not in the description box below this video, visit odyssey.com, which is spelled ODYSEE.com. On odyssey.com, in the search bar, type the name of my channel, Harris Crash Prediction. Then go into the channel by clicking the channel name, Harris Crash Prediction. Once you are on the channel's homepage, then click Content. Then use the channel's search box. This is different than the odyssey.com search box. Search for this video by typing the same video title as the title of the video you are currently watching. Alternatively, for more information on how to find this video, visit the website harriscrashprediction.com. Hopefully you at least found this introduction video to be interesting, and if so, please leave a like and a comment and upvote the video, and please help this video to go viral by sharing it with everyone you know and sharing it everywhere in social media.